There's one man who invented the name disinformation. His name's Joseph Stalin. Soviet Union created the notion of disinformation, that there was one central truth, and that was held up high both by the Politburo, by those in power of the Communist Party, and it instilled truth from the top down. So this sort of brings us back to the dramatic difference between an American approach about decentralized truth, trust in the masses, trust in the average citizen, versus a top-down approach where there is a central truth.
Peter Schweitzer, take one. What I think is so interesting about the rise of social media is that the promise is it was going to decentralize everything. Everybody now has a voice. You're no longer going to have gatekeepers, a few select publications. Everybody is going to be part of the public square. The problem is the public square is dominated and controlled by a couple of large companies, and those large companies themselves reflect certain values and views. So you have this strange reality where the technology diffuses and creates a lot of voices, and yet you have the corporate power that maybe wants to restrict and control on certain issues. When you wed the corporate power with a federal government or governmental powers that say, we have an opinion on who should be able to say what and when, you now have sort of a stacked on top of that, a second level of censorship.
I don't think people would have imagined that those companies that gave us those communities and our Facebook friends would suddenly be massive government contractors and would be at the beck and call of the FBI or a guy named Elvis Chan saying, hey, censor that story, it's disinformation. But somehow that became the business model for these big tech companies. They became more dependent on government contracts and government relationships and government expansion.
What the federal government often does is say that, well, we're censoring this to protect you. We're not doing this to serve our own interests. We're doing this to protect you. It's for the public good. It's for the public safety.
The very people who told us they were protecting us from disinformation were actually spreading it under the banner that they had created. And I don't think most Americans fully appreciate yet that that is the outcome of this machinery, that the disinformation people were actually the disinformation artists.
So it's much more deceptive at the federal level, and it's much more sophisticated as well. Because what we have to remember is that the government apparatus in the United States was fine-tuned during the Cold War and then during the global war on terror, where information warfare became a central component of fighting wars.
We are in a war for truth right now. In order to win the battle, you need to understand what battlefield you're on.